There are on the order of 28 million couples in the United States that are in sexless marriages today, which is a startling statistic. So it's very common. If you're in a sexless marriage, you're not alone.
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for joining us on Second Act TV. Today, another conversation with one of my favorite sexual health couples, Jim Griffeth and Emily Liu. Thank you so much for staying over.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Silke. We love talking to you, so we're excited about this topic.
Yeah. Well, in our last segment, we discussed how to get back into a relationship or get back in the game, if you will, after a long-term marriage has broken up. Big topic here, obviously. What I want to focus on today is let's not get to that point. Let's save our marriage before it breaks up. Let me just throw it over to you. What exactly is a sexless marriage? Because I think the definition is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's defined as less than 10 times a year. So that amounts to less than once a month, having sex less than once a month. And there are on the order of 28 million couples in the United States that are in sexless marriages today, which is a startling statistic. Given that there are only about 80 or 90 million couples total, that's a huge percentage of all the couples out there. So it's very common. If you're in a sexless marriage, you're not alone.
You know, I know some people that would think, well, less than once a month, 10 times a year is a lot.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Exactly. Let's kind of define who we're talking to here, because this is, in order to turn around a sexless marriage, you have to want to do that. This is not talking about, infidelity or health issues. This is about two people that have lost their way and that want to be intimate again. Correct? What's the first step?
Yeah, exactly. And just to comment on that, it's so easy in the course of a marriage to settle into what's comfortable for you. And these are habits and behaviors and ways of communicating that can sort of work against building intimacy, right? Because sometimes it's hard to talk about these things. It's hard to sort of broach the subjects. So we tend to avoid them. And that builds up over time and becomes the source of some of the challenges that we face in a sexless marriage.
And what happens is that a lot of resentments get swept under the rug. You're too busy with the kids and work and like every little thing that he or she may say in a tone that's not so open-hearted, gets deposited in the memory bank of, oh my gosh, I just, you know what, forget it. That's just so minor. I hated the way he told me to just do that. And I hated his energy, but you know what? It's not a big deal. He provides for the family and we got kids to take care of. So you forget about it. And then those resentments pile way up. And then before you know it, you don't even want to touch him or touch her.
And now the kids are off to college and, you're by yourselves again. And you want to rediscover that passion that you had early in your relationship. It's part of what brought you together in the first place, just how you could love each other in an intimate way.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is the intimacy.
And that means getting vulnerable again.
I was just going to say, I in your notes, you say that one of the first steps is getting vulnerable and speaking from the heart. What do you mean by that?
It means really approaching your partner and just say, I miss you. I miss the connection we used to have. I know sometimes I'm a bit of a nag, and I don't want to be a nag. And I would love for us to talk some of these things through. You have resentments, I have resentments, and I want us to be close again.
And maybe you have a really demanding career, or you both have really demanding careers that take you, on the road, or that just consume a lot of your available time and your energy. And this conversation is really about reprioritizing the connection that you want to establish and build with yourselves in your relationship. And making that a priority means carving out the time to do that. And if you can carve out that time and make the commitment, then some really magic things start to happen.
Yeah. And also understanding, what is it about your partner that every time he does a certain thing that triggers you? And when something bothers you, it's it's all because it's your childhood wounds showing up in the relationship. And relationships are meant for each other to help, for each person to help each other to heal those childhood wounds. And unfortunately, we are not taught that that is a higher level purpose of a relationship. So instead of just holding space for the angry part that may come through with every little thing, we judge that angry part and we like fight back or we shut down.
Right. Yeah. So there's some response other than just simply listening. And this is the first sort of step that I would encourage a couple that's struggling with a sexless marriage to practice, is to really understand each other's point of view, each other's needs, and to do so by listening to them. We call it holding space, but it's listening to them without judgment, without response, but without judgment and without emotional response, but with real intense focus on the words and the meaning and the emotion behind it. And this sort of non-reactive approach is a way for someone to really be heard by an empathetic and open heart, right?
Well, I think what you, in going on to step 2, there's specific verbiage that you do not want to use in order to have someone listen. Talk to me about that.
Right.
So I'll give an example. Like a lot of times, maybe a man drives faster than a woman, or he's got that, like, I got to be in the lead. And some women get a little, scared about that. So one approach that I know many of my friends have taken in that situation, they would say, like, why do you drive so fast? Notice that tone. Notice the words. Why do you? Mm-hmm. Or why can't you empty the dishwasher in the morning?
Yeah.
Or why don't
you take out the trash?
Exactly.
Why do you mow the lawn?
What happens when you are the recipient of those words? Why you? Why don't you? Why can't you? Why can't you be more like my sister or my brother who does this, and that for his wife?
So it evokes a defensive response. Those very words, when I hear them from her, automatically I'm in defense mode, right?
But I haven't said those words to you very often.
I know. I'm just saying, if I were to hear them from you.
If you were to hear them from me.
It's going to evoke a natural defense response, is what I'm trying to say.
So a way to do it is start with I. And I'm curious, Jim, I noticed that when we're on the highway, the speedometer goes up to 80, 85. I'm really curious about your thinking of the desire to be in the left lane, to be the fastest. Can you help me understand that? Because, a part of me gets really scared when we're like the fastest person on the road or whatever, that's a scenario. So instead of judging it, you get curious. I'm really curious. Or I feel scared when I'm moving in a car that's faster than everybody else's. I don't want to get flagged down by the cops. I don't want a $300 ticket. I get scared. So what are you feeling when somebody's doing that? And get curious about, okay, tell me more about the background of the decision making you have in doing this. And you have to say it from a really neutral, open heart and curiosity.
So what you're saying is then in saving a sexless marriage, or just making that U-turn, I think, as you called it, is to really get in tune with how you speak to each other.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for saying it so concisely. The idea is that you're not challenging, you're not judging your partner. You're talking about what's happening with you, and whether it's fear because I'm driving too quickly, or it's some other response. It's about what's happening inside you, and more often than not, that's going to invoke in me. It's like oh. Did I do that? I'm sorry. It's like I all of a sudden am able to hear it and not be defensive about it, but rather sort of respond in sort of a constructive way about, okay, what would make you feel more comfortable?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or to even understand, like, okay, men have a problem asking for directions, asking for help. And then I come to understand, like, oh, it's because his father said you should never ask for directions, or you should never ask for help. You're not a man if you don't ask. It's like, oh, okay, that's why he
You
has a
should be
hard
able to do it
time.
yourself, right? Yeah, that's the independence that men are either explicitly or implicitly told that we have to lead a life of independence. We have to be self-sufficient.
So get curious instead of furious.
Yeah, but those roles, as much as we know we're dealing with equality and whatever, there is a difference between men and women, and there's a difference in relationship. And I think to your point 3, when I'm seeing it here, is that we need to get back to those roles when we're talking about a relationship. Correct?
Right. Yeah. Particularly if you're interested in attraction, right? So what we talk about here is polarity. So it's a masculine feminine polarity idea, and the idea is that each of us have feminine and masculine parts, right? So women have masculine energy and feminine energy, and men have masculine energy and feminine energy. And the masculine energy is the leader, decision maker, and that kind of thing. The woman's energy is more of a flowing energy where there's emotion expressed, there's vulnerability expressed, there's questions, there's needs. That's sort of our feminine energy, and we both have that. But in this particular situation, what we often see and work with actually are couples where the woman is a powerful professional, right? They're in their professional life. They're used to ruling the world, and I don't quite mean that literally, but almost. These are very successful women who are used to calling the shots at work and directing people on what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
To bring that same approach into the marriage at home, you walk in the door and now you're directing your husband and your children in the same way. It has an emasculating effect on the man, which means that he feels like he's not able to wear the pants because you're in charge.
Like, okay, stepping back, I want to go sushi tonight. Let's go. And like, okay, is that from masculine energy or feminine? Oh, okay, it's masculine. I'm directing the show.
Yeah.
You could switch that around to say, I'm in the mood for sushi. What do you think? Ask the question. What do you think?
Honey, I know a really good sushi restaurant. See, now it's my idea.
Yes. I told him what would make me happy. I'm in the mood. Men want to make their wives happy.
Yes.
So women, our job is to give them the clues to what would make us happy.
And not direct.
Direct. Say, okay, I'm thinking, we could go to, I'm in the mood to go to Greece or Italy for a summer vacation. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then he could say, like, okay, let me do the research.
I got a choice. I got to choose between Greece and Italy.
So give the decision making back to him. Let him lead, and he could say, okay, let's decide together. But he's still leading.
But I'll lead the process of making a plan.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a similar conversation with an author that basically the premise of his book is that men, being the strong man a woman really wants, that men have given up their leadership roles.
Yes.
Either because they were stripped of them by a domineering wife, or they're just they don't know what to do anymore in this world that we have today. How do you treat a woman? So it's a really complex, I think, and interesting topic.
It really is, and men have to switch too when they come home, because nowadays we're used to dealing with powerful women at work, right, and following their lead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same deal. We have to find a way to get back to sort of the fundamentals of attraction. And that really is sort of somewhat of a traditional role, with the man leading and the woman following.
Yeah.
Or even to say, honey, the kids, they have this complicated schedule. Can you figure out who I should bring and what you're going to take care of? Something as simple as that. Give the leadership back to him. And then he could direct to say, you know what? Why don't you do this, and then I'll do that? What do you think? So that becomes a collaborative process.
Yeah. So you can lead by asking questions. I mean, that's really the magic here from a feminine energy standpoint, is you can still express your needs and lead But if you pose it in a question form or in a suggestion form as opposed to a directive, then it has a whole different way of landing on a man. It's not disempowering. It still gives me the opportunity as the man to take the lead and help, define what the plan is and execute it.
Yeah, and oftentimes, like when a man feels disempowered and emasculated, that's going to build resentments and anger inside,
Right.
and then that ends up blowing up, and the dishwasher wasn't turned on, and it had nothing to do with the dishwasher.
Right.
So all of
Exactly.
those resentments lead to the sexless marriage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
exactly.
we need to do these three things, and that is get vulnerable, and then hold space for each other's vulnerabilities, and then
U-turn.
make the U-turns. Don't blame and use those why you phrases and words. And then third is for the women to soften and ask more questions so that he can do the leading and the decision making.
Yeah.
And this idea of the woman transitioning from her male energy at work to female energy at home, sometimes it's not easy. It really has to be a conscious process and a conscious decision. And there are some exercises and things that we can suggest that will help with that transition. And so we work with our clients on those kinds of transition techniques.
Yeah.
Well, I believe there's a link to that, right? Are we going to supply our viewers a link to the exercise?
Well, we do have, they could go on our website, intimacyandgreatsex.com, and that could give you a lot of information about how we do this to get clients out of sexless marriages. And also, we have a free guide to greater intimacy that discusses the U-turn and the new way of communicating with your partner. So if they go to our website, intimacyandgreatsex.com, they could get the free download, and that could help them start the process of getting reconnected again with their spouse.
Yeah, and if you don't find what you're looking for there, you can always contact us directly, of course.
Yeah. Well, I love this conversation. It's so important, I think, just to raise awareness of this, because you'll listen and you go, wow, this is what happened to us. That was me. And again, I always couldn't bring it back to me. I mean, my ex-husband, he just ended up being lazy, and I don't know if he ended up that way or if I, as a natural leader, took over. Yeah. But I didn't even realize how much I led until after I led the marriage, and I found myself starting, doing it with other men. Yeah. Then I realized, and I stopped, and I learned a lot. So you brought up some excellent points. And again, our audience, I would encourage you, if you want to talk more to Jim and Emily, again, we'll link to their information, but also engage in questions on our comments. You guys are terrific at addressing our viewer comments. So thank you for that.
We love your listeners and your viewers' comments, and we love responding to them. So we're really happy when we get a chance to do that. Yeah.
Well, we're almost at an end. We have about a minute left. Anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, I would just encourage them to get that guide to greater intimacy and start to speak in a different way. Drop the why, drop the you. And this is not just with dating or your romantic partner. This is the same for your friends, for your mother that annoys the heck out of you. If you change the way you speak to them, and they're going to change in how they respond.
Yeah, so just one of you can make the relationship change. But I think it's even more effective if you can have the conversation between the two of you of, honey, I would really like to get back to the kind of intimacy and passion that we had. Let's work together to be able to find our way back to that.
You brought up another really great point, and then we'll close, that by changing your behavior, the way you talk to someone, one of you can get that change going, and that's a really key point to know as well. So again, thank you. I can't wait to have you back. We'll see you next time on Second Act TV.
Thank you, Silke. It's been great as always.
Thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. And if there's a topic that you'd like to have us cover, visit our website, secondact.tv. We have a little red suggestion box in the upper right-hand corner of our site. Just click on that, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.